Alright, so it's a deliciously cool and foggy morning this morning, just the kind of way I like it. When it's cool, I have less MS symptoms. Even my left eye is actually working semi-normal today, and all my twitches have gone away. I don't have numb feet. It's a good day. So, the Argo, on the other hand, looks like a bomb hit it. I've been doing lots of extra stuff on here, as you may have seen in a previous episode, if you've watched the whole series. If you haven't, the last thing I did was to install an isolation switch, an AGM battery, and auxiliary connections, of which I have temporarily connected a solar panel to. This guy is nearly 13 volts now, it's good. But I've got to detach the solar panel and put this back together because it's getting picked up tomorrow to go off to the trailer guys and get measured up so that they can finish off the trailer for it. And then we can finally actually go somewhere with it. I'm looking forward to that, looking forward to the water test. And it reminds me I should probably put the boat bungs in if I haven't. Yes, the bungs are in. And then I've got a water snake outboard motor coming, electric outboard for it. Sold off my 2-stroke petrol one. And at some point we need to measure up the lugs on the front, which I might do today, so we can make a reinforcing bar for the winch plate that I want to put on here for the winch. And yeah, I might even get a winch with a remote control for it, because the winch that I got just has a hand controller like this with nowhere near enough cable, and all manner of other issues. So we might just get a whole different winch. It's cheaper than the money of, in fact, I think I spent 20 bucks on a hunk of heavy cable, and a whole new winch is about 80 bucks. So by the time I spend the money to make that work, I could have bought a better winch. Anyway, I've got to get this strap reinstalled properly, a bit like that. Yeah, get all these firewall panels and everything back in. So let's get set up and start doing that. Alright, so we're almost done, but before it goes away, there's one thing I need to measure up, and that is there are two little tabs that extend off the steel subframe in here, and they need to bolt onto a little bar that runs along the front here to support the winch bar, or the winch doubler plate. But I can't get down there to measure it. I have worked out what bolt size it is, and I've tested the bolts in there by feel, and they go through. But how do I measure that so I can make flange plates for it without knowing what the actual sizes are, or being able to get down there? Well, in case you doubted if blue tack has any more purposes, I found another one. I've stuck it to a piece of wood, spread it out. I'm going to mush this on top of those flanges, pull it out, and then measure the impression. So let's get in there. I can't get the camera down there, and I've put the firewall back on, so I can't poke the camera in from the side. So we'll just jump to having those measurements done. Alright, so here's our impression, and it gives me the spacing of the holes and the distance of the flange off the side. I didn't get it on this side, but that doesn't matter. I can extrapolate from the distance to the hole, assuming it's symmetrical. But those two holes are the most important part that I needed to know. So let's go and measure that up in AutoCAD. back outside. I took another impression and it matches up pretty closely. I stuck it with the verniers, but I've had a bit of an inkling, or a bit of a hunch, where you say, well, I've taken the rear pan out again. I've had a look at these tabs here and how they're made from this frame. Now they've taken what looks like the box tube, cut a slot out and folded it up, and it's mostly in line with the chain. I've got a sneaking suspicion that they've probably used the same jigs to do all this cutting and everything like that as they have for the front. So I thought I'd match this impression up and ignore the PC-21 aircraft in the background. Now, these two holes are in identical positions, so I dare say the width between these two is probably exactly the same at the front. And especially considering when I stick my hand down, I can feel a small lip a bit narrower than the width of two fingers from the edge. I know it's not exact measurement, but I think this is probably exactly the same width, which saves me a lot of effort in trying to measure it. Now, I was going to cut down a stick to the width of the tub here, shove it inside down the front and make a measurement as to the width of that. But I'm going to measure these two, and I think I'm going to have a bit of a gamble. I think when I make the plates, if I make enough slack, I'll get away with it, but I think that's going to be my measurement. So enough rambling, let's get a measuring tape. The measuring tape I've got for this important job is an old Fiat one. Of note, my grandfather put together the first Fiat tractors in Australia, and they only came with Italian plans at the time. So yeah, I have a lot of Fiat memorabilia that I inherited. Let's measure this across here. Now we need to measure it where we get an accurate measurement. So just a smidgen longer than 28 inches. We are looking at 700, where are we? 600, 710. So it's a little wider than that. Yep, so 710 across. I'd say almost 705. It's a hard call to make. Let's measure it the other way so we can see more closely. I dare say the restrictions have lifted near the local raft base too. Yeah, 705 millimeters is the width. We can work with that, and our total width of the tab is, let's see here, 75, 76, 77 millimeters total. Alright, I think we can work with that. And this corner, where are we? Over this side, these welded reinforcing corner brackets, I think feel very much like what I can feel down the front. So I think the chassis is fairly uniform on the opposite end as well. Oh, and that's all my towing hitch bolts in. That's good. Alright, let's go back inside and put these measurements in. And something else I've stopped to check whilst I'm having this little breakthrough. This is one of the bolts out of one of those holes. I wanted to double check the hole centers. Once I had it out, I thought, you know what, maybe I can check it against the nuts and bolts I already have. And so I don't see them using a different type of nut and bolt there. Let's just have a quick look at our thread gauge just beside each other. It looks like it's pretty much the same gauge. Will it thread into this nut? These are not metric. They're imperial. I thought there was a nylock in there because this went in and started to jam up. So these, I thought Canada was a metric country. These might be imperial. But I have a bolt I can go and check now. So we can check against that. So these little M8s are probably not going to fit. So I need to look up what the metric version of M8 is. They'll be UNC or something crazy, I'll bet. Anyway. So on the way home I found one of these as well. Briggs & Stratton oil filter. I have a local Briggs & Stratton dealer. Told them what engine's in the Argo and they said put one of these on. So and they said I'm good. But what I've done with the oil change, or what the dealer has done at 3 hours, is good. My break-in should be about 10 hours, and then every 50 hours thereafter. So I think I'm up to 8 hours. So I've still got to take it out for another couple of hours before I do the oil change. And in that time, I should be able to find myself an oil pump to extract the oil back out the dipstick hole, because I can't get to the drain plug in that thing. So anyway, let's make my way home. I got a date with the barber. Alright, let's see if I've wasted my money. Beautiful. Gonna go in perfectly. Alright, I'll go and put the original back in. Alright, something more for the Argo has shown up. And excuse my messy floor here. We have a 54 pound thrust motor down there. And we have a bow mount, which I think should mount on the transom of the Argo, because it's a little bit wider. I think. If not, I'll have to make an adapter, but we'll cross that bridge when the Argo comes back. The trailer guys picked it up this morning, as you probably saw in the video. So yeah, we'll see it when the Argo comes back, which should be in a few days. So while we're in the middle of that, got another delivery just showed up. Got a spot trace. And this is going to get installed into the Argo, so that, namely how and when I intend to install it or store it, I screwed that line up completely. Basically, I'll be planning on storing this. I'm not entirely sure where yet. But when I do, I want to make sure it doesn't get stolen. And this little thing can sit dormant, hiding away, and it can run off a waterproof power cable as well as batteries. It gets a hell of a long time on batteries. But it can store away in a hidey hole under the plastic body panel, where it still gets good RF reception. And it can phone me if somebody moves it, or sorry, it can send me a message, and it can do real-time tracking. And if I'm really stuck, I think there is a duress button I can depress in here as well, so that I can alert some help with this thing as well. But yeah, it'll certainly help keep the insurance down, and yeah, just some added security. It has a little bracket here that you can install ahead of time too, with some screws. So yeah, we'll get this open in a bit, and we'll register it too. So I've got all the serial numbers here. It's a subscription service. You go through findmespot.com or something like that, off memory. I've already got my Spot Gen 3 registered, so this will go on the same app. But it also means when I'm out and about cruising around a thing, if I forget my good spot tracker and I happen to end up in some unthinkable situation, roll it over or get stuck, somebody can find me. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to get this open, get it registered, and start tracking it. Alright, so before I do really anything with this, the first thing I need to do is update the thing. One of the reasons for that is the GPS epoch happened mid last year, about the same time I was working on my GPS logging Geiger counter. It's a bit like the Y2K of GPS units. And if you don't update the clock and the satellite positions in them, they'll really never ever get a fix, or they'll take a really long time to do it. So, and the accuracy can be inaccurate. If this one has been manufactured prior to 2019, or early in 2019, it will probably have the wrong GPS epoch set. So, we'll need to update that. We'll get a micro B lead in here, and we will plug it into a USB port off camera over here. We'll turn that on. We'll let it fire up. It will in a minute. And we're going to run the spot update tool here. And we're going to let it do its thing. I got to remember what the auth code was. I've got to go find it. Alright, so I'm dropping screws everywhere, but I have opened the battery pack here. And that comes off in one half, and the rest of the unit comes off on this half. And the auth code is listed in here, which I won't show you because that's a security thing. But we'll read that off and then we'll plug it in. We'll be back in a moment. Alright, I had to do a few things, and I've got to pick the Nerf darts up out of the way. My little apprentice had a visitor the other night because restrictions have allowed it, and they had Nerf wars. I've got 1,500 Nerf darts unaccounted for. Alright, so I had to get the new version of the software. So let's plug this thing in and see if it recognizes that it's there. I'll give it a few minutes and see what it's doing. Alright, so our device is updating here. It's worth noting you have to actually pay for and activate the service before it will let you update the firmware. But it's all good. It's writing all the firmware changes to the device. So yeah, we should be able to see this at some point soon. Alright, so it's all registered and updated, and I had to do a few things. I had to call support center and stuff. But we got to the bottom of it all. The device is registered and paid for. I've given it a name because that's where it's going. And I've got, under this plan, I've got tracking down to every 5 minutes. I can have it down every 2.5. And I'm really tired and yawning here. And I've also got some blue tack redacting here going on. Got some movement aids as well. I've got dock mode, status messages, power off, low battery, third-party GPS forwarding, and all sorts of stuff like that. So, yeah, handy stuff. It says the service is currently suspend. Oh, I can suspend. I've gone with the flex plan, which means I can tell it to suspend at any time. So, yeah, the months that I'm not using it, or that, you know, if I come up with a better solution, I can just stop paying for it. But probably in the future I'll buy a yearly subscription and all the bells and whistles. Anyway, I'm going to get this set up and just make sure everything works. Alright, time to give this a test run. We'll push and hold the power button until it turns on, and see what happens. Here we go. It'll go flashy, flashy, flashy and turn on. And then I'm going to go park it outside with a clear view of the sky, and then I'm going to set up some services and see if it sends a message to me. Alright, I've got this map zoomed in so far that you can't see exactly where things are, just for obvious reasons, but I took it out the front, and it saw me go from my front door to the front yard and then stop again. So yes, it's working, it's paid for, it's going to be good. So yeah, we're happy. So yeah, I think I'm going to be pretty pleased with this. So it's time to go and shove this under the bonnet, or at least once my Argo returns. It's not here yet, but we'll put it in as soon as it is. All right.